Today we are going to discover the impressive account of the bishop about his near-death experience. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and comment on where you are watching us from. Now let's get started. Since my childhood, I felt a deep calling to follow God. My faith led me to the priesthood and, over time, to the episcopate. I dedicated my life to the church, studying the scriptures, guiding the faithful, and preserving secular traditions. I believe that devotion and obedience to the institution were the foundations of faith. People saw me as a spiritual leader, someone they turned to for advice, guidance, and comfort. Every Sunday, I climbed the pulpit, delivered sermons, led prayers, and performed rituals passed down from generation to generation. I taught the faithful to follow the commandments, the teachings of the church, and to remain firm in their faith. But there was something I never revealed to anyone. A disturbing feeling of emptiness was neither constant nor easy to explain. Sometimes at night, I found myself alone in my office, contemplating the open Bible before me, wondering why I didn't feel the presence of God as I preached to others. For years, I told myself it was simply fatigue, a natural burden for someone in my position. However, the doubt persisted. I was always taught that faith resided in loyalty to the church, in defending its principles, and in guiding the people in worship. When I prayed, the silence was deafening. Before the altar, the divine presence I had felt in my youth now seemed distant. I pushed these questions to the back of my mind because my responsibility was great, and many people counted on me. Then came the night that changed everything. After a long day of meetings and preparation for the next service, I sat in my office, exhausted, flipping through my Bible mechanically, without really absorbing the words. I decided to pray, but before I even began, a crushing pain hit my chest. A suffocating pressure spread through my arm, and the air seemed to disappear from my lungs. My vision blurred, my strength drained, and as I tried to call for help, my voice betrayed me. I tried to stand, but my legs failed, and I fell to the floor. The noise around me began to fade. The distant cries of those who found me turned into absolute silence. Then everything went black. I never imagined I would die that night. A moment before, I felt intense pain and fear, but in the next instant, everything was calm. When I opened my eyes, a chill ran through my soul. I looked down, seeing my own body lying on the floor. I was hovering above the scene. Like a distant observer, my body was motionless, arms falling awkwardly, face frozen in an expression of shock. The door suddenly opened, and members of the clergy, whose faces I knew, entered, and I heard their desperate cries. One of them called an ambulance while another tried to wake me by shaking my shoulder. Curiously, I didn't feel panic, just a deep emptiness, as if everything that defined me was gone. I tried to speak, to make them understand that I was still there, but no sound came out. I had no voice. Shortly after, the paramedics arrived. I watched as they prepared the equipment and checked my vital signs. Then one of them shouted. My heart had stopped. I saw when they placed the defibrillator on my chest. Shock, ready, clear. An electric current ran through my inert body. My chest rose slightly, but I remained there, not knowing what would happen next. Silence reigned as I watched the scene before me. My body lay motionless on the floor while the paramedics worked tirelessly to bring it back to life. Another shock, nothing. I watched all this as a distant spectator without feeling the slightest connection to that inert figure. It was like watching a movie, except this time the fallen character was me. Then something changed. I felt a sudden pull, an irresistible force pulling me down. The room around me distorted, the silhouettes of the paramedics and clergy disappearing into the distance. An icy cold enveloped me, and for the first time since I had left my body, I felt something real. Fear. I always believed that death brought peace, that it would be a tranquil rest. As a bishop, I spoke about the security of the soul in eternity, but here, at that moment, there was no peace, only a terrifying void. At first, a subtle shadow appeared on the periphery of my vision, moving slowly, but as I delved deeper into this void, it became increasingly dense, swallowing the last vestiges of light around me. I was alone. I tried to move, but there was no direction or ground beneath my feet, just an infinite abyss. And then I realized I wasn't alone. Something was there, watching me. I couldn't see it, but I felt its presence. The darkness itself seemed alive, whispering words that penetrated my soul. You were never worthy. You followed rules but never knew him. You spoke of the light but never walked in it. The words were not spoken aloud but echoed within me, hitting me with a crushing truth. Reality hit me brutally. I was not in the presence of God. I was lost. I spent my life preaching, teaching, preserving traditions, believing I was on the right path. But none of that mattered. None of that brought me closer to him. I knew things about God, but I had never really known him. I screamed, but no sound came out. I tried to resist, but it was useless. The darkness enveloped me, filling me with overwhelming fear. At the moment I thought I would be completely consumed, something shone in the distance. A small, fragile light at first, but real. Unlike the darkness, it pulsed with life, warmth, and power. It grew, tearing through the void like a beacon, and I was drawn to it. As I approached, the whispers that tormented me diminished, becoming mere distant echoes. The darkness retreated, and an indescribable warmth enveloped me. An absolute and powerful love surrounded me, and then I knew, without a doubt, that I was in his presence. The light enveloped me completely, but it was not just light. It lived, pulsed with a presence so intense that I felt as if my entire existence was exposed before it. Every thought, every moment of my life, every hidden doubt, everything was on display. I didn't just see the light. It saw me. And then, I saw him. I didn't need anyone to tell me who he was. My soul recognized him instantly. It was Jesus Christ, the one I had preached about my whole life, to whom I had dedicated prayers and teachings. But seeing him before me, an inescapable truth hit me. I had never really known him. His glory was overwhelming, but also intimate. His garments shone with indescribable purity, and his gaze emanated such absolute love that I felt I was about to crumble. However, there was an authority in his gaze, a penetrating presence from which I could not escape. I wanted to kneel, but I couldn't move. His voice was like thunder and peace at the same time. Alexander, he pronounced my name. But it was not simply a greeting. It was as if he had always known me from before my birth. His voice carried the weight of the one who formed me, who breathed life into me, who saw every moment of my existence. A deep desire invaded me. I wanted to run to him, throw myself at his feet, but at the same time, I was terrified. Then he said something that changed everything. You knew things about me, but you never truly knew me. The words hit like a sword. I wanted to respond, but there was no justification. What could I say? I spent my life teaching about him, defending the scriptures, leading prayers. I thought I was on the right path, but now, before the absolute truth, I realized how wrong I had been. I knew things about him, but I had never really known him. Tears burned in my eyes as the weight of my entire life collapsed upon me. I had pronounced his name thousands of times, stood in great cathedrals, guiding congregations in his name. But had I really sought him? Had I let him into my heart? Had I really listened when he tried to speak to me? The answer was no, no. I felt exposed before him, not condemned, but deeply convicted. There was no possible argument, no defense, for I knew he was right. Then he raised his hand, and in an instant, visions invaded my mind. I saw my life, not as I remembered it, but as he had seen it. I saw moments when I preached about love, but in my heart I had judged others harshly. I saw moments when I consoled sufferers, but it was just a duty, not true compassion. I saw myself teaching others about Jesus but never really seeking him for myself. Then I saw the faces of the people who approached me, seeking something real, something deeper. Instead of leading them to Jesus, I led them to tradition. I gave them rules, rituals, a doctrine, but not him. A deep sadness invaded me as I saw these moments unfold before my eyes. I always assumed that by being faithful to the church, I was fulfilling my purpose. But now, before the one I claimed to serve, I saw reality. Faith was never about a building, never about a title, position, or tradition. It was always about knowing him. Tears streamed down my face, and I finally found my voice. Lord, I didn't know. I thought I was doing what was right. His expression remained full of love, but there was also a deep sadness in his eyes. Many believe they follow me, but they do not know me. The words reached me like a torrent. How many people were deceived like me? How many dedicated their lives to religion but never really knew the one they worshipped? I thought of my congregation, the thousands of people who came to my church seeking the truth. Had I led them to a real relationship with Jesus, while I gave them only rules to follow, then another vision appeared before me. I saw countless people before God, just as I was now. Some were welcomed into his kingdom, their faces full of light and joy, but others were turned away, pleading, insisting they had served him, insisting they had done good deeds in his name. And then I heard his words that stopped my heart. Before we continue, just one request. Please subscribe to our channel. It really helps us keep going. Before continuing, just one request. Subscribe to the channel. This helps us a lot to continue. Stay away from me. I never knew you. I fell to my knees, sobbing. I was so close to becoming one of them. I always believed in Jesus, but I never truly knew it. I could never stop seeing what I see from witnessing. I could never live the same way again. Then, Jesus approached, and for the first time, I felt his hand on my shoulder. The moment he touched me, a wave of love for me enveloped me, breaking all barriers and washing away all doubts. It's not too late, he said. Hope shone in me. My whole life had been a shadow of what true faith should be, but now I saw the truth. It meant I had a second chance. I looked at him, with eyes full of questions, full of despair. And then, everything around me began to change. As soon as Jesus' hand left my shoulder, the light disappeared, and I found myself on the ground in a vast open space, suspended between two realities. I couldn't see anything but the infinite sky above me. But under my feet, I felt solid ground. Although there was nothing there, I turned to Jesus, but before I could speak, visions began to flash before my eyes, clearer than memories, more vivid than anything I had ever lived. The first thing I saw was my own life, but not as I remembered. It was as if I were outside of time, watching myself from a completely different angle. I saw myself, a young priest eager to serve, full of conviction. I saw the day I became a bishop, the moment I was tasked with guiding thousands in faith. I saw myself in great cathedrals, preaching, guiding people in worship, speaking with authorities about God. But then, Jesus spoke, not out loud, but directly into my soul. You led many to religion, but few to me. The words hit me. I saw people approaching me with questions, seeking something deeper. They wanted to know God and understand his purpose, experience his presence. But instead of leading them to Christ, I led them to rituals, rules, and traditions. I gave them prayers to recite, doctrines to memorize, church laws to follow. But I did not give them Jesus. I felt sick. I thought I was serving God. I spent my life teaching about him, but I never truly led people to him. Another vision appeared. I saw a service, one of mine. I was at the front, preaching to a large congregation. People listened attentively, agreeing, but the vision changed. I saw them a few days later, unchanged. They followed my instructions. They performed the rituals, obeyed the traditions, but they were not transformed. Their hearts were the same. Their lives had not been affected by the truth of Jesus. Then the scene changed again. I saw heaven and hell, but it was not what I expected. I spent my life teaching that good people go to heaven and that the wicked face judgment. But now, Jesus showed me something much more frightening. I saw many people in hell, and they were not just murderers, thieves, or those who openly reject God. Many of them were deeply religious. They were priests, pastors, church leaders, faithful members of their congregation. They followed all the rules, attended all the services, recited all the prayers, but they had never truly given their hearts to Christ. That's why they were lost. I wanted to look away, but the voice of Jesus held me firmly. They claim to serve me, but I do not know them. A great cry and lament filled my ears. I saw people screaming, begging for a second chance, claiming they did good works in his name. I recognized some of them, priests I knew, faithful church members, people I once admired. And then I heard the most terrifying words of all, words that made my soul tremble. "Depart from me, I never knew you." The look on their faces was unbearable. They spent their lives believing they were saved, but they never really knew Jesus. They served religion, but not God. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run. I turned to Jesus, my heart racing. "Lord, I didn't know. I didn't understand." His eyes were full of sadness. "You did not seek me with all your heart. You followed tradition, but you never followed me." Tears streamed down my face. How could I have been so blind? Then he raised his hand again, and the vision changed. Now I saw heaven. A place so beautiful, full of life and light that I had difficulty absorbing it. But what impressed me most was who was there. I saw people like men and women, young and old, people who never held a position in the church, who were never recognized as religious leaders, and yet they shone with a brightness that could only come from one thing. They truly knew Jesus. Some of them were fishermen, people the world had condemned, that the church had rejected, but they had been forgiven, redeemed, transformed. Then Jesus spoke again. "Salvation is not in a title, a building, or a tradition. It is in me. Everything I built, my life, my position, none of that saved me. I was shaken to the core of my being. I thought my position made me holy. I thought following the rules made me righteous. But I was wrong. It was always about him." I looked at Jesus again, my voice trembling. "What should I do now?" For the first time, he smiled. "Now, you will truly know me." At that moment, I felt something inside me change. Something I had never felt before. For the first time in my life, I was not before a God of rules, but before the Savior of my soul, and I knew I could never go back to being what I was before. I spent decades guiding people in religion, but I did not lead them to him. Tears blurred my vision as I fell to my knees. "Lord, I do not deserve mercy. I do not deserve a new chance." Jesus looked at me with deep sadness, but also with love in his eyes. "You understand now." I nodded, my body trembling. I was blind. I believed that my devotion to the church made me righteous. But now I saw the truth. It was never about a building, a position, or a title. It was always about knowing him. "Please, Lord," I said, pleading, "what will happen now? What will become of me?" Jesus did not answer immediately. Instead, he reached out, and suddenly a vision unfolded before my eyes. I saw the world as it is today, and churches full of people, but with hearts far from God. I saw priests, pastors, bishops, and religious leaders preaching words that seemed sacred, but without a true relationship with Christ. Many churches had become institutions, not places of true worship. They were filled with rituals, rules, and traditions, but devoid of the Spirit of God. I saw people worshiping religious systems instead of Jesus. Then I witnessed something even more frightening. A great lie was unfolded. False teachers preached, before vast crowds, a diluted gospel that demanded nothing from people, allowing them to continue living in sin. They spoke only of blessings, but never of repentance. The churches were full of people who had never truly given their hearts to God. They thought they were saved, but they had never known Jesus. I saw souls being led to destruction, not because they had completely rejected God, but because they had been taught a counterfeit faith. Then, I saw the moment before Christ's return to earth. The sky trembled and darkened, and many who thought they were saved realized too late that they had been deceived. They cried out and begged for mercy, but the time for repentance had passed. Jesus turned to me with a solemn expression. "That is why you must return." I looked at him, stunned. "Return. You have seen the truth," he said. "Now you must tell them." A deep fear settled in my chest. "Lord, they will not believe me." "Some will not believe," he replied. "But some will." I thought of my congregation, of the thousands of people who trusted me and followed my teachings. I had led them in the wrong direction. I spoke of before the Lord, I murmured. I led so many people down the wrong path. Jesus knelt beside me. His voice was gentle, but firm. Then bring them. Bring them. A light of hope shone in me. Jesus reached out and placed it on my chest. The moment he touched me, a wave of warmth and power coursed through my being, unlike anything I had ever felt. Go and lead them to me, not to an institution, he said. That word hit me like light. My whole life I had led people to the church, teaching them to obey the doctrines of men, to follow traditions, to trust religious leaders. Now I finally understood it was not about a system, but about him. But now Jesus was telling me to do something different. I needed to lead people directly to him. I was afraid. I knew that if I returned, I would face opposition. Many within the church would reject my testimony. They would accuse me of lying, of betraying, of deceiving. But Jesus spoke again. A great lie is spreading in many churches. You need to warn them before it's too late. Those words made me shiver. A lie. Jesus showed me another vision, this time of churches full of people who did not know him. Truly turned to the preachers, they spoke of wealth, but never of repentance. The leaders proclaimed themselves servants of God, but lived for power and prestige. The congregations followed tradition, but never sought Christ for themselves. Worst of all, I saw churches distancing themselves from the truth of the Bible, teaching what was comfortable and not what was right. The voice of Jesus was firm. Many are lost and don't even realize it. Tears filled my eyes again, Lord. And if he refuses to listen, and if he rejects me, Jesus looked at me with deep love and unshakable authority. Then let them reject you, but don't let them say they were never warned. The weight of these words sank into my soul. I had spent decades serving a system, and now I was called to serve the truth. I took a deep breath. I will go back. Jesus nodded. Tell them what you saw. Tell them they are coming back soon. At that moment I felt a great force pulling me back. The light around me became brighter. My body seemed to be pulled through time and space. I tried to hold on to the moment, to remain a little longer in his presence, but I felt myself falling from the sky, back to earth. The last thing I saw before everything went dark was his voice, giving me one last command. Wake up. A violent gasp. Command. Wake up. A violent gasp tore through my lungs as I awoke. My body trembled. My back ached. My chest burned. My limbs were weak, and my vision was blurry. I looked around. I was in a hospital bed, surrounded by machines emitting incessant beeps. The fluorescent lights above me contrasted sharply with the radiant light I had seen moments before. Doctors and nurses rushed towards me. He's awake, stabilized on a monitor. I barely heard. I wasn't thinking about my body, but about what I had just seen. That I'd been before Jesus Christ. I had seen heaven and hell. I had been given a second chance. A nurse leaned over me, her face full of relief. Mr. Alexander, you have been unconscious for almost 2 days. We didn't think you would survive. Those days felt like I had left this world for an eternity. A doctor checked my vital signs, and what already left stunned is incredible. After what happened, you should have severe complications. But all your tests are normal. I closed my eyes for a moment, letting this truth sink in. I shouldn't be here. I should be dead. But Jesus brought me back and gave me a mission. The following days were a blur of medical tests and visits from concerned people. Bishops, priests, and members of the clergy came in. To see me, they thanked God for my healing. But they had no idea what I had really experienced. I knew I couldn't remain silent. I needed to tell them. The first opportunity arose when a small group of clerics gathered in my hospital room. They came to pray for me, offer words of encouragement. But I didn't need encouragement. I needed to warn them. I took a deep breath. Feeling my hands tremble, I looked at my brothers around me, and with a hoarse voice said, I need to tell you what happened when I died. The room immediately fell silent. Some looked at me with curiosity, others with skepticism. I didn't hesitate and began to tell everything I had experienced. I spoke about the moment I left my body as I was pulled into a deep darkness. I expected to find peace, but instead, I felt lost, without reason. I had never really known Jesus. I recounted what I had experienced being in front of him, the revelation of the truth that was given to me. I dedicated my life to leading people to religion, but not to him. I spoke about the lie that happens in many churches. How people believe they are saved, but never really gave their heart to Christ. We are leading people down the path to Christ. We are leading people down. Wrong path, I said firmly. The reaction was immediate. A priest frowned. You were hallucinating, he said. Your mind was overwhelmed. You were not in full use of your faculties. A bishop shook his head with a look of pity. This is not a divine revelation. It's a near-death experience, he said, trying to minimize the impact of my words. A third bishop leaned forward, cautious. Are you saying the church is wrong? I swallowed hard, feeling the weight of the truth in my soul. I replied, I say we are teaching people to follow rules, rituals, and traditions, but we are not teaching them to know Jesus. Personally, a silence settled. Some were in shock, others expressed disbelief. A priest, standing up with a sigh, said, Mr. Alexander, I think you need to rest. We thank you for your healing, but this is dangerous. The word dangerous cut through the air, for the truth indeed seemed more dangerous than anything else. Speaking about Jesus became an act of rebellion. They left, some shaking their heads in disapproval, others showing their discomfort. No one accepted what I had just said, but I knew I couldn't remain silent. I began to preach in a different way. I abandoned traditions and empty doctrines. I spoke about Jesus, about how salvation is not found in rituals, but in a personal relationship with Christ. I warned about the lies that occurred in many churches, about how people were taught to seek comfort instead of conviction. I knew that many would one day stand before God and hear these terrible words, Depart from me, I never knew you. Some members of my congregation heard and were touched, but others rejected me completely, called me a heretic, accused me of abandoning the church. Some bishops refused to allow me to preach in their churches, and priests warned their faithful to stay away from me. But that mattered little. I had seen the truth. I stood before the King of Kings, and he gave me a second chance now. Before you, I ask the same question Jesus asked me. Do you really know him? I don't ask if you know something about him. If you attend church or follow religious traditions, I ask, do you know him personally? I was a bishop, a leader in the church, and yet I was lost. Until Jesus showed me the truth. I beg you, do not make the same mistake I made. One day you will stand before him, and when that happens, he will say, Well done, good and faithful servant. Or he will say, Depart from me, I never knew you. Seek him now before it's too late. I deeply thank my Lord for it's too late, sharing his story with us, and to you who stayed until now, my gratitude. May this testimony bring something positive to your life, valuable lessons that can guide you. If you haven't subscribed yet, take the opportunity to subscribe and follow the next videos. See you soon.